welcome to my talk. As Nick said, I'm Anna Truffet, and I'll be talking to you guys about design and why design is my passion. As you may have noticed, based on this capitalization, it's a meme. I only have learnt one meme in my entire life, and it's very old and obscure, so here you go. Anyway, but actually what I'll be talking to you guys about today is graphic design. Because 99% of the time, 90% of the time, everyone, you don't really need design. Like, you've got UI, UX, they'll tell you how to make things pretty and you're like, that's okay. But realistically, that 10% of the time, when you have your own projects, your own deco presentations, your own thesis reports, you do need some level of design. You do need to make it look professional, right? Because it's important what you say, but it's also important how you say it. It needs to be professional. It needs to be clear and easy to understand. So that's what I'll be talking about today. How you get your current project and just make it that little bit more professional. So before I get started, I'll talk about who I am. So who am I? I study software engineering and commerce at UQ. So you guys might have seen me in like ITLC or GP South or tutoring some of your courses. I also have done quite a bit of design before, so I've worked with, say, Robigals, UQCS, UQ, ITEE, but I've also done freelance gigs with Brisbane and Queensland organisations. My main experience has been marketing, branding, graphic design and illustration. So who are you? Who are you? So the main thing when I was coming up with this talk, and the main thing I was targeting, is that don't worry if you don't have any graphic design skills. Don't worry if you've never used any fancy software before, because that's who I'm talking about. You know, you're just here, you're like, my resume, my website is just hot garbage. How do I make it like slightly a little bit better? And you'll see that I'll be using like Microsoft PowerPoint and like Canva and all those kinds of tools throughout the time. So let's get started. So the way it's going to pan out from here on now is that I'll have like a rule of thumb and I'll do some spiel about it, and then I'll apply it to like an actual project that someone sent me. Yeah. So, rule number one is always bring a ruler. I ironically don't have a ruler with me today, but this is all about consistency. So like keeping everything in line, make sure your spacing's right, make sure your font sizing is right, and it's all consistent. It may sound really simple, you like to keep all your fonts the same, but if you're not careful and if you're not double checking it, some things might slip through the cracks. And even if you may not realize it, the human eye is really good at picking up inconsistencies. It's really good at picking up when things aren't centered. You may not be able to go, this text box is a pixel to the left, but you can clearly go, something's off, something's weird. So let's get started. So I'm going to grab up our first example for today. So this is an actual person's thesis presentation, thesis poster I should say. Okay, we'll make it back view. And then if we have a look here, it's pretty good. For those who may not realize, you're actually given your thesis presentation poster as a Microsoft PowerPoint template, so that's why it's in Microsoft PowerPoint. Having a look, it's pretty good. Like, as in, he's got 4 columns, he's got a lot of information on it, but when you consider it being A3, it's not too bad. He's also got good diagrams and all that. But if we have a look, if we zoom in, you may notice immediately that there's already some lining inconsistencies. The fact he's put 3 vertical lines here means you can clearly see that these columns aren't like consistent, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete these 3 lines. There we go. So even though we haven't really fixed the issue of his columns aren't centered, at least it's harder to tell from just looking at it. So let's quickly fix those columns. So if we have a look here, if you just click on your like little text box, click shape format, it will tell you how big your columns are. So you don't need to like manually go scrolling and changing the size. You can see this is 10 centimeters, this is 9.7, 9.7. So I'm just gonna select all four and then type in the number 10. Why not? But now we're all the same. So if we have a look, you can't tell much difference yet, but as I highlight these four text boxes, you can clearly see that they're not centered. So they're all slightly to your right. So yes, you could potentially move them manually. Again, there's a lot easier ways to do it. So back to shape format, I've highlighted my four text box, and I'm gonna align it to the slide, and I'm gonna distribute horizontally. So that way, it automatically distributes all your columns so they're all nice and easy and breezy and all the same. So even now, just looking at it from back here, such a small difference. We've literally spent like 2 minutes on this. It's been a little fast, apologies for that. But it looks so much better. And then last thing I want to mention is his fonts look pretty good. A lot of them are like 14 and whatnot. But if you have a look at his methods and his aims, even in the same column, his font sizes, one's 18 and one's 20. So I'm just going to fix that. So again, just consistency is key. Keeping everything centered and aligned can make such a big difference. There you go. So good. Yeah. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for rule of thumb number 1. Oh, that's not where I want to go. So yeah, this is rule of thumb number 1. Just bring a ruler. Make sure everything's consistent, everything's aligned. A lot of these tools like Microsoft PowerPoint, as we just saw, had like that automatic aligner distribution. You'll see that all your other tools also have it as well. So we'll use it later in Canva, but like Adobe, GIMP, all those have it as well. So next rule of thumb, keep it simple. So I know this is like a very overused rule of thumb. Like everyone says keep it simple, but realistically it's quite true. So whether that be the number of colors on your screen, or like visually, like the layout, or the graphics you use, or the photos you use, keep everything simple. For 2 reasons. 1, if you have too much on your screen, like if you have 20 different colors, the person doesn't know what they're looking at. They're like, I don't know where to read. I don't know what to start looking at first. But also, nice way to put it, but the more things you have on the screen, the more things you can screw up, right? The more colors you have, the more colors that could look ugly. So keeping it simple is a good thing. Like even for example, this PowerPoint, 1 green color and then the rest is grayscale. So let's get started. Bringing up UQCS's introduction PowerPoint. No shade will be thrown, just positive constructive critiques. But thanks UQCS. So if we have a look at the presentation, it's actually pretty good, right? Like let's go through, the presentation just for context is like at the start of a semester, like who is UQCS, what do we do? Yeah. So let's have a look at the presentation. It's pretty good, like pretty good text. Keeping it, I like the color scheme, like it's got blue and gray. Blue is like UQCS's blue. Quite simple layout, very clear text. I like the triangles. It's pretty good. There's some cool photos of their famous pizzas. Some more good photos. Slightly odd in that sense of all the photos are different sizes. So something just to keep in mind. Again, they're really consistent with this triangle theme, blue. It's pretty cool. Maybe a little busy, but we'll come back to that. Yeah. So there you go. That's UQCS's PowerPoint. Let's have a look at the start, and we'll work our way through it. So as I was saying, for this first slide, I actually really like it. I like the triangles. I like the color. I'm a little confused what this horizontal line is for. Not sure why, what it's adding, so I'm just going to delete it. You know, just going to delete it. And then it's quite plain, so I'll just make these triangles slightly bigger. There you go. Pretty good. Again, I like this slide. Let's keep going to the next one. Again, unsure why the line is here. I'm going to delete it, just keeping things simple. Don't have any extra things. And then a couple things I want to mention here. This like UQCS logo is pretty cool. Like as in a lot of PowerPoint slides have this like watermark of like the logo brand. Unless though it's consistently in every single slide in the exact same position, like in the exact same size, it's kind of odd. It's just like, why is it on this one slide only? So I'm just going to delete it. So keeping everything consistent, keeping everything simple. Small thing that's more of just like pissing me off rather than like a design critique. The triangles don't align. Just gonna fix that. There we go. Still not perfect, but it'll do. You guys don't need to see me adjusting triangle sizes for 30 minutes. Cool. How do I make this better sized? Okay. Then having a look here, they have like this really cool indent. Like I see that they're trying to play with layout. Again, however though, this is the only slide where they indent their text. So I'm just gonna unindent it. Like feel free to have a play around with your layout, be creative and whatnot, but just keep everything consistent. Cool, let's keep going. So we've got this famous horizontal line that I don't know why it's there, but also our text is different between our slides. So as I was saying, right, like it seems like such a simple thing to remember, like, oh, why won't you keep your text the same? But it's very easy to forget. So we can just manually change it to be like 36 and then be like, oh, this is this color, I'll change it to that color. What you can do though, and what most places, like most software has, is if you just highlight the text box you want, click this like paint roller or a paintbrush, then you can just like click the text that you want to change it. So it'll automatically save all those formats for you. There you go. It's looking pretty already. So good. What we do, I like it. Some things to note with PowerPoints more so is that a lot of text sometimes is not what you want. Like you want them to be focusing on you, the presenter, rather than you, the slides. So, but realistically, this is fine. Let's keep going. Got some cool photos of the pizzas. Hey guys, where's our pizzas? And then page 5. So this was what I'm mentioning. Every photo is a different size. So I'm just gonna make them all the exact same size. I honestly don't know how to adjust the size of my photo, like type in the number in Canva. It's just something I don't know. But what you can do is you can actually adjust it, and they'll have like snap to grids. So a lot of these tools will have grids that will automatically snap for you. So when I'm dragging it, you may see that like automatically snaps to like halfway. And like Microsoft has this, Adobe has this, like every software has this. It's not halfway. There we go. There you go. So as a result, it's just keeping everything consistent, less confusing as well. There you go. Just gonna center these images. But otherwise, looking pretty good. I think that's centered. There we go. Sometimes takes a little fiddling. Cool. Keep going. Page 6. So there's a lot going on this slide. Like if you just like look at this slide specifically, where do you look first, right? Like that's my first question. Where do you look? Because you have like, say you have a photo that's quite busy. Then you also have text on top of the photo. And then you also have on the left, you have text and then like 2 colors as your background. Like there's just a lot going on. And you're like, I don't know where to look. So I'm going to just try and make this slightly more simpler. I like the image and I like how they have the text in like the part 50-50 split. So I'm just going to remove this triangle, right? Like even with just removing that simple triangle, it's a little less in your face. Another thing, I'm just gonna split this to 50-50. Yep. I see someone in the comments saying, damn, she's savage. No, I'm constructively helping, hopefully. So if we have a look, I'm just going to then center these. There we go. Again, if you have a look, in Microsoft PowerPoint, I think it was called Align. In Canva, it's called PaSSIon. Like, they're all slightly different names, but like, they're all the same thing. Like positioned, aligned, ruler, straighten. Yeah, so I'm just gonna center these two things center. Cool. Now we have the issue of the text on top of the image. Go for it if the image is like really simple. If like the image is like really simple, not a lot of things in there, not a lot of colors, go for it. But because it's such a busy image, and it's like such a cool image, I'm just gonna move the text over. Cool. Awesome. Now we have an issue of sizing. Like, we can't fit enough on, so I'm just going to reword some of this. So we'll be sure to make your money back in pizza. Quite wordy. You will make your money worth in pizza. Pizza. So it just fits on the same line. Get exposure to a variety of tech fields and find your interest. Get exposed to a variety of tech fields, because we're UQCS, and interests. That grammatically may not make sense. Expose yourself. Well, that does not sound great out loud. Anyway, so there we go. So now it's just fitting slightly nicer onto the screen. And I'm gonna recenter it. Cool. So I'm gonna drag that down. Now we have more room for why you should join. Again, we're still having a slight issues, like we're still tight on space. So what I'm gonna do is gonna just reduce the sizing between the 4 text boxes. So I'm gonna group these elements together. So I'm gonna group social and meet new people. Group up there in the top left. Cool. Just group them. So that way, now I can use that distribute guy that we used on the Microsoft PowerPoint. I think that's enough space. Select all 4. Position, and then space evenly vertically. So we did this with the previous like Microsoft PowerPoint, but we just distributed horizontally. Now we're just distributing vertically. There we go, looking good. Last thing I want to mention. What's going on here? Centering that guy. Cool. Last thing I want to mention is that this like blue background is pretty cool. Like, for example, if you want to like grab your attention, you like listen to this slide. This is the business. This is the bee's knees. It's great. But this, for me, I don't know how the presentation goes, but it seems like a slide you'll be talking about for a couple of minutes. So I'm gonna just say, make it white. Like, don't be afraid to go and like have a grabbing attention, but usually you want them to be like call to action slides. Oh no. Now, we gotta just change our text back to black. Another reason why I'm doing this is because this slide is very unique to... this slide is very unique to every other slide in UQCS's PowerPoint, right? Every other slide has like triangles, has like the blue, is only text-based rather than text and image. So just also having the blue background whilst every other slide is white, it's just like a lot of difference. So just making sure there's some form of consistency between your slides is a good idea. Page 7, I swear this is nearly the end. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up to UQCS. It's like a call to action. So it's cool to have the black. Just notice that this gray is not the same as every other gray in UQCS's PowerPoint. And this blue is not the same to every other blue in UQCS's PowerPoint. So keep it simple, right? Originally we were keeping the layout simple, removing those extra lines, removing those extra symbols. We also want to just keep this color scheme simple. So we're just going to be using that blue, right? And we're just using that one gray. Yeah, so already looking good. I like it. Good job, UQCS. Anyway, last slide. So looking pretty good. I think everything is like horizontally like distributed well, so which is a good start. Again, there's like multiple colors of blue. Keeping it simple, I'm just gonna remove that extra color of blue. Like UQCS's branding from memory only has one blue, so even just on that front alone, branding wise, there's no need to introduce a second blue. So looking good. Congrats UQCS, I love it. Yeah, so there we go. That's realistically it for that point. Realistically, all I'm trying to say is keep everything simple. So whether that be your layout, right, imagine that split screen with the image and the text on top of the image and like the two blows, just reducing that layout to keep it simple as possible, keeping colors simple, don't overwhelm the person, and the more stuff you put on the screen, like the more stuff you can screw up yourself. Cool. Next rule. What is it for? So this is a bit of a self-burn, as based on all the comments just being, I'm roasting everyone. This is going to be a self-roast. But what is it for? What is it for is a design question, but also coming from my marketing background, right? So whether that be the medium, so like, is it a PowerPoint presentation? Is it a website? Is it a static image? That's going to be very different on your design, right? Like a website has buttons and like moving things, whilst a PowerPoint can't move. What's the purpose? So is it formal? Is it informal? Is it for children? Who is your target audience? Yeah, because like the colors you use for a formal thesis presentation is going to be really different if you want to try and talk to like 3-year-olds. Yeah, there you go. So what is it for? So self-burn incoming. So this is my website. This is really bad. Please don't judge me. It was one of those like at the start of like your 3-month holiday, I'm gonna start learning web dev, and then 2 weeks, like not even like 2 hours in, you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna just sleep on the couch for 3 months. But originally, as you can tell, it's not great. First off, bit of background. This is, I made like an email newsletter to make fun of my mum because she uses email still. And I just copied that design into my website without thinking much, right? So like a static newsletter is going to be very different to like a website. The colors, I like to think of myself as like a happy person. These colors are like really muted, like really dull, really muted, quite relaxing. And then also, not like who's gonna read, like just am I ever this interesting to have anyone read this much information about me? Like no one's reading this, right? Like no one wants to know about my previous work experience. Yeah, so those are some things that I would mention, right? So like what is it for? Like design portfolio, this really doesn't express me as a designer. Also, the medium, like why did I make it? What am I using to make it? Like it's not, the amount of text here doesn't make sense for a website. And I don't even have anything static, I don't have any moving graphics. So yeah. Instead of opening up like HTML and CSS and like live programming websites, I'm not gonna do that. I can guarantee you now my like style of code is not great. So I'm just gonna show you what I've done after like half an hour on a Saturday night, realizing I needed to update my website for the talk. So there is still a lot of room for improvement. But as you can see now, as it's a website, stuff moves, which is great. It's slightly more interactive. It's not quite, like as in these things don't change. I have buttons now, which is exciting. I've kept everything short, because this is meant to be for like as a quick overview of who I am, and then keeping it short. I updated my design stuff. Before I was just using placeholders of like previous work, and yeah, now everything moves as well. It's so good. Last thing I want to mention, because I'm going on a tangent now, the color scheme, less dull, slightly more energetic. Cool. So that's all about what is it for. It's not so much about like a rule of thumb, like you can just like select all and then align, or select all and then distribute. It's more of just like a think about why you're designing it, like why are you making this thing. Last thing, find a roaster. Literally, as the slide says, anyone with eyes can do, right? So like, yes, if you ask me for design advice, I can very quickly and clearly say, this text box is out of line, this color doesn't work with the rest. But realistically, don't discredit yourself, and don't discredit like your mum. Everyone has eyes. You can be like, I don't know what's wrong with it, but something looks off center. Like that's perfectly valid and very useful information to have. More information, I won't give you a demo on finding a roaster. I won't go find a person, but here are some places you can find people. So a real life person, so it can be just anyone off the street. UQCS Slack, so there's a couple channels, so the hashtag, the design channel. It's a really cute community. There's just Daniel and me drawing cats, and then someone with really amazing drawing skills drawing. But we'll have a critique if you ever need feedback. Jobs discussion is specifically for resumes, so if you want to get your resume critiqued, whether that be like the content or the design, jobs discussion would be the way to go. Also Reddit, like people like look at me when I say Reddit, but you can just like make your own separate account so it's like not linked to anything, because UQCS Slack design is like you put it up there and then hope someone can give you feedback. Reddit is a really good place if you want like actual professionals. So when I started learning Adobe Illustrator, I didn't know anyone else who used Adobe Illustrator. So you can just like post on Adobe Illustrator Reddit, and there's professionals who've been using it their whole life and they're ready to go like, looks really good, have you thought about this feature? Same with design critiques, web design, Photoshop, graphic design. There's a whole bunch of them out there. Odin says our resumes is good too. So apparently, chuck your resume on that. So to sum it all up, I think I went a little fast, but it's all good. Sum it all up, we have 4 rules of thumb. Bring a ruler, which is all about consistency. Keeping it simple, like whether that be colors, layouts, graphics. What is it for is like the bigger question of what is it for, how you're, like what is it on? And then find a roaster, anyone with eyes. Before I leave you all, I want to give you guys some cool resources. Also, I'm wrapping up, so there's a like 30-second delay. Just feel free to chuck questions in the chat. Cool resources, colormind.io is great if you need color advice. Design.google is a good design blog. Slack and Reddit for design advice. Material UI, if you just want a good looking website with like good components, pretty good. Canva, so we use great for document templates. Just be careful when you start changing the templates. Your spacing might go off and your alignments might go off. Yeah, just use that with a grain of salt. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you for coming to my talk. Feel free to get in touch. So UQCS Slack Truffles. I think I'm also on like UQ Design as Truffles as well. But yeah, I'm always happy to chit chat.